Hi there, I hope you're all doing well. Today we'll have a look at this machine, the Liven Texture Lab, which is a granular synthesizer with a 128-step sequencer, and it can also be used as an effect to process sound we send into it. So we'll talk about granular synthesis, how we can design different sounds with it, and everything we can do with its sequencer, with the automations and stuff. So let's go. First, to turn it on, you can have it run on 6 AA batteries, but for today I'll use the power outlet. The sound goes out with a mini jack cable, you have an extra output for the headphones, and you can send sound in with a mini jack cable as well, to process the incoming sound with the granular engine. You have a MIDI in and MIDI out and sync in and out to synchronize it with other machines. From there, all the knobs at the top are pretty much to create a sound with the granular engine. We'll see everything about it. And the buttons on the bottom half are for the keyboard and the sequencer. Most of these knobs and buttons have secondary functions. You can use the knob secondary functions with the shift button here, and you can use the button secondary functions with the function button that is here. So when you turn it on, you can play with the keyboard, of course. You can change the BPM with this knob, the volume with this one, and use the pattern button here to load new presets. Once you tap the pattern button, all the buttons on this line represent a different preset. And these buttons here represent banks of presets. So there are 16 presets per bank, and there are 8 banks. Bank 1, 2, 3, and 4 when it's lit in green, and 5, 6, 7, and 8 when it's lit in orange. And a preset is a combination of a sound and a sequence that you can play by pressing the play button here. And to play with the sounds, you can transpose the keyboard with these arrow keys here, octave down and octave up. You can change the voice mode with the function button and mode here. You have polyphonic, monophonic, legato, and arpeggiator. Then with function and adjust, you can add some glide time when it's in legato. You can adjust the glide with the value knob. Or you can change the arpeggiator pattern when it's in arpeggiator. You have up, down, down, up and down, random, etc. And you have play order as well. And if you want to hold the note, so the arpeggiator can keep playing, so you can have your hands free to play with the knobs, you can hold the OK button and play the notes you want to hold. And if you want to release those notes, you can do clear and OK. So now we've seen the basic functions to play with the machine. So let's see how to modify and create new sounds. With granular synthesis, a sample is chopped in a lot of different bits that we call grains. Then those grains can be played in different order, at different pitches, or be of different length, that sort of things. With the Texture Lab, you will have both the sample and the grains playing at the same time. Basically, the sample will play, so a playhead will scan through the sample, and grains will be generated from the position of the playhead at different intervals. So the moment the playhead is here, grains will be generated from here, and you have parameters to change them. You can change their size to make them longer or shorter. You can change their shape with shift and shape to add some fade in and fade out to each grain. You can change their timing, which is the frequency at which the grains will be generated. From 0% to 50%, you'll get more and more grains per second until you get lush. And then above 50%, you will get some rates that are synchronized to the tempo. So 16th notes, 8th notes, etc. And with shift and this timing knob, you can have some jitter. So this timing can fluctuate to add some randomness to it. And then you have a density knob, which both feels like a unison effect for the grains, so every time a grain is supposed to be generated, a group of grains will be generated instead, as well as a probability knob, so when you turn the density down, it's like not all the grains will be generated. And then you have a diffusion knob which will spread the grains in the stereo field from left to right to make the sound wider. From there you can randomize the size and the shape of the grains with functions and these buttons here for size and grain. Say we want to randomize the size, you can set how much you want to randomize it with the value knob. These are the parameters you have to change the grains, and they become very powerful when you combine them with the parameters you have for the sample playback to move the playhead around. So let's hear the sample now instead of just the grains. This is the blend knob, so you can blend between the sample and the grains. So first, you can select the sample you want to use with this source knob.
Put down the cheese.
You have 32 slots for the samples, which is not a lot, honestly, but you can do a lot of different things with them. And the sample will be played in loop automatically. So you can change the length of that loop with the length knob. I'll set the loop so we can hear only one note. You can change the starting position of the playhead on the sample with the position knob. So you could select another note of the sample, for example. And you can freeze the position of the playhead with the freeze button here. If you want to hold it, you can still use the hold button plus freeze like we did for the keys earlier. Freezing the playhead on the sample will stop the sample playback, but that will still generate grains from this position. So here we hear only the sample. So that stopped the samples, but if I play the grains instead, okay, next you can randomize the position of this playhead on the sample. You can use shift and position to change the rate at which the position will be changed, and you can use shift and length to change the depth of the modulation. So that can help to create smoother textures. And if you want this position knob to scan only through a part of the sample, you can crop the beginning and the end of the sample with function and start sample or end sample. Let's say we want to crop the end, you can change the value with the value knob. You can use the shift button with the value knob to go by higher amounts. Okay, so then you can play with the pitch of the sample with the pitch knob here and the speed knob here. They are both very similar, like with the pitch, the sample will be read faster or slower, and with the speed knob, the sample will be read higher or lower as well. But the difference is that the pitch knob will affect the pitch of the grains, and the speed knob will not. So if you turn down the pitch, the sample will be read slower, and the grains as well. And if you turn down the speed knob, the sample will be read slower and lower in pitch, but this won't affect the grains. So for example, you could pitch up a sample and then speed it down, so the sample will come back to the original pitch, but the grains will still be pitched up. And finally, you can play the sample and the grains forward or backward with shift and the speed knob, here direction. This will show you two arrows. The first one is for the sample and the second one is for the grains. So here both will be played forward. Here the sample will be played forward and the grains backward. And that can also be randomized or ping pong. So by turning the knob, you will see all the different combinations. So by combining the sample and grains options, that's a lot of possible combinations, and we are going to see some examples of sounds you could make with only one sample. But why not make that sample a custom sample so I can show you how to record your own sample in the machine? So to record a sample, plug a source in the line input. I will use my phone to play a sound, but you can plug a synth or anything with a line output. For a microphone or a guitar though, you will need an amplifier to record. So then you do function and sampling to arm the track, and you can then check the level of the signal on the LEDs there. Select the slot on which you want to record. This one is empty. And when you're ready, press the record button again, and the recording will start as soon as the machine detects the sound. You can see the progression of the recording on the LEDs, and it will stop automatically after 6 seconds when it reaches the end of the line, or if you tap the record button again. From there you can hear how it sounds on the keyboard. But you still have to save the sample to keep it. So you have the option to press OK to save or clear to dismiss it. Let's save it. You can still change the slot you want to record on there and press OK again. Now it's saved. Know that the Texture Lab can also resample itself instead of recording an external device. To set that up, you need to do function and settings here until you find SRC for recording source, and then select PTN to record a pattern you've made to audio. For now, we'll stick to the sample we've recorded to see some patch examples. Let's put the blend all the way up so we hear only the grains, and we'll make very short grains with a very high timing. So that pretty much reconstructs the sample. But now by playing with the pitch knob and the speed knob, we should be able to play the sample at different speeds while preserving the pitch, or vice versa. So let's try that. Right now it sounds very glitchy, but we can try and correct that with the shape of the grains by introducing some fade in and fade out to each grain. This way it gets way smoother. And with this setup we can alter the timbre further by changing the size of the grain as well. And if the sound is too smooth, you can try turning down the density to make it drier. And if you randomize the position and use the timing sync to the tempo, you can get some pretty cool sequences out of it. So let's dial back the blend to reintroduce the original sample, turn the timing down to have less grains and make them longer. We'll ditch the random position as well. This way you can get like a background texture that can be nice. So here is with only the grains. And here is blended with the original sample. And then continue to play with the pitch and speed sample to have the grains higher in pitch than the original sample to get it more shimmery. To shape the tone of your patch, you also have an envelope generator here, a filter and a reverb. To demonstrate that better, let's put the blend at 0% and use the Texture Lab as a sampler. By default, the envelope generator adjusts the release, which is how the note fades out when you release a key. And when the shift button is pressed, it will control the attack, which is how the note fades in when you press a key. With the filter knob, by default, it controls the cutoff, and with shift, you can control the resonance. You can turn the filter on and change the filter type with function and the filter button here. You have low pass filter, high pass filter, and band pass filter. And the reverb knob here is the amount, and with the shift button it becomes the dry wet. And you can also change the reverb type with the function button and the reverb type button here. With the value knob, you can change between hall, room, arena, plate, tunnel, infinite, and off. And it could be cool to randomize some parameters, like the pitch or the length of the sample loop, for example. And to do that, we can use modulators. You have two modulators at your disposal, which are basically LFOs. The options for the first one are here, and the options for the second ones are there. With function and assign, here or there, you can choose the parameter that will be moved by one of the LFOs. You can choose which one with the value knob, so let's say the pitch, here, and then you can change the rate and the depth of the first LFO with those knobs while pressing Shift, and the rate and the depth of the second LFO with those ones. Then you can change the waveform of the LFO with function and shape, and then you can choose between different waveforms, randomization, or even key tracking. Say you want to put it at random, if you crank the rate and the depth up, you can have some really glitchy effect. But let's make a smooth pad. So I will change the start and end point of the sample, so it will loop only one note of the sample, and only this note can be used to generate grains, so the pad will get a lot more coherence pitch-wise, and play with the size to get different textures. Now both LFOs can be re-triggered with each note with function and retrig button. This way the LFO will restart with each note, so each note will have the same shape. And then the first LFO have the option to be faded in if you want the modulation to appear gradually. And you have an option here with function and mod sync to synchronize both LFOs to the tempo. So this way everything can move in rhythm with your sequence. Okay, so we've seen how to create and modify sounds, so now let's see how to write a pattern with them. You have three ways to write a pattern. You have step recording mode, when you press the record button and the sequence is not playing. There you select the step you want to record on and input the note you want for it. Or press the note again to remove it if it's already there. When you select a step that already has a note in it, you will hear it continuously to hear what's in there. So you'll have to go to the next step manually. And if you want long notes, you can activate the tie function here with function and tie. Then press and hold the note so it will start at the selected step, and then press the step you want the note to end on. This way the note will play throughout all the steps. If the tie function is not active, this will play as several separated notes. Also, the keyboard is not velocity sensitive, but you can change the velocity of each note with Shift and Velocity here on the blend knob. So you can change the velocity of each note before inputting them in the sequence. When you select a step that already has a note in it, you will hear it continuously. So you will have to go to the next step manually. But if you want to go to the next step automatically, each time you input a note, you can activate the auto step function. It's in the system settings, so it's function and system until you see ASTP for auto step, and you can turn that on. This way, each time I input a note, it will go automatically to the next step. The second way you can record a sequence is with live recording, which is by pressing the record button while the sequence is playing. Then every note you play will be added to the sequence. And the third way to record a sequence is with the direct recording mode, and that always works whether the sequence is playing or not, or whether the record button is pressed or not. Direct recording is when you hold the step button and input a note that will add the note to that step, though you don't seem to be able to remove a note from a step in that way. But direct recording mode seems like a great way to add notes to a sequence on the fly while it's playing. At any point, if you feel like you made a mistake while recording, Note that you have an undo function. That's the function button and undo here. You can only go back one time though, only one state is saved. But if you want to undo this undo, you can redo with function and redo. So undo, redo here. And if you want to clear a step in particular, you can hold clear and select the step you want to clear. The step will be emptied in this way. Once your pattern is done, you can change the length of the step, which is function and pattern note. This will have the sequence read faster or slower, but also the arpeggiator. The speed of the arpeggiator is tied to this parameter there. Those sequences can be as long as 128 steps with function and pattern length. There you can change the number of steps you want in your sequence up to 128. And to see all those steps, you have those page buttons, where the first page is the 16 first steps, then page 2, 3, and 4. And to access 5, you have to click it again until it's lit in orange. So that's page 5, 6, 7, and 8, back to 1. So you can have 8 times 16 steps for your sequence. But I'll stick to 16 steps for my sequence for the example, because your sequence can hold not only notes but also automations, which is movements for your knobs, like your knobs can move automatically while your sequence is playing. And I think that is what makes the sequencer of the Liven series quite powerful, the possibility to record automations for almost any knob. And you can record those automations with 2 of the methods we've seen. To do that, first make sure that the parameter lock button is active when it's lit in green. This way the Liven will read those automations. So the first method is direct recording when you hold a step and move a parameter. Let's play with the release for the example to make the first step longer, the second one shorter, then longer, short, and then long, and then long, and then short. So that's direct recording mode, which is cool to input specific values on each step. And then you have live recording mode to record the movement of the knobs while it's playing. To do that is function and parameter lock, so it's lit in red this time. Then hit record and play and record the automations in real time. Once the automations are recorded, you can still activate and deactivate them on the fly with the parameter lock button. And to erase the automations completely, you do clear and parameter lock. Or you can do clear and pattern, and then it will ask you if you want to erase everything, only the notes, or only the automations. And if you want to erase the automations on one step only, you can also do clear and a step button. Actually, if you clear a step and the rec button is active, it will erase only the note and keep the automations. If you clear a step and the parameter lock is red, it will remove only the automations and keep the notes. And if none of the rec buttons is active, it will erase both. So you can make automations for almost any knobs. The only one you can't automate are the source knob, the pattern BPM, the global BPM, and the volume. So now that you have a pattern, you can play it in several ways. First, you can set a probability for each step by holding OK and selecting the step you want, and then select the probability you want between 25% and 100% chance to happen. For example, here, this second step has 25% chance to happen. And you can set a different probability for each step. You can add swing to a sequence by pressing function and pattern setting until you see swing, then turn the value knob to adjust. You can also transpose a sequence, also with function and pattern setting, until you have transpose. You can go from -12 to +12 semitones. The sequencer will wait the beginning of the loop to apply the transposition. Then each sequence can be read in a random order with function and random sequence here. Then you can do function and pattern setting until you see RNDS for random sequence. And then set the size of the bits that are read in random order. So that can be each step in random order, or little phrases of 2 steps, 4 steps, 8 steps, or 16 steps. Let's do 2 steps. Or let's see 4 steps. Or you can do function and sequence stutter for the stutter mode, which is nice for live performances. With it, you can repeat any step by holding the corresponding button while it's playing. And you can also hold several steps button at a time to repeat longer phrases. Okay, so now that we have a sequence, I want to save it. For that, it's function and save. Then you can select the slot you want to save to with the value knob or by pressing one of those buttons. Then you can rename your pattern by doing function and pattern data here until you see PNED for pattern name edit. Then press OK. Then use the value knob to change the letter and use those arrows to go to the next character. Then when it's done, press OK or press clear to cancel. So we've seen so far how to create sounds with the Granular Synth engine, how to create patterns with the sequencer, but the Liven Texture Lab also can be used as an effect processor to process an external sound. So to do that, we need to plug something in the line input to send sound in the Texture Lab and press the EFX mode button. You can adjust the volume of the line input with the level knob here, and if you want to set it to mono, you can do function and line in until you see mono, and then you can choose between on or off. Once in this mode, some of the parameters are disabled, like the speed knob and the envelope generator, and others will change their functions. The position knob now introduces some delay, so the grains are generated after the original sound has played. The length knob is now a feedback knob, so the grains that are generated are sent back into the effect, so new grains can be generated from them. The shift with direction here can now only change the direction of the grains, so it's only forward, backward, and random. The voice mode with function and this button now enables and disables the pitch transposition of the grains when you play different notes on the keyboard. And the voice adjustment here sets the glides between those notes. You can still freeze the incoming signal like you could freeze the sample, and all the other knobs work as usual. Now, the Texture Lab as an effect and also as a texture generator really shines in combinations with other machines. So let's see how to synchronize it with other machines. Here you have several options to choose from. To choose how the Texture Lab will synchronize itself, you can do function and clock until you see SRC. You can choose internal, so it won't synchronize to other machines, it will only follow its own pace. You can synchronize it through MIDI, through sync, and line in. The sync is the regular sync through mini jack cables like the Volca series use. And the audio sync in the line input is the type of synchronization the pocket operators use. It's where the stereo mini jack cable, where one channel is used for the synchronization and the other is for mono audio signal. By pressing function and clock again, you will have more advanced options, like choosing the polarity of the sync signal or activating the audio sync output, which will use the headphone output to synchronize it to a pocket operator. Also with function and MIDI, you can choose the channel for receiving and transmitting MIDI. Choose if you send or receive clock, control changes or commands, and it's also here that you can set the MIDI out as MIDI through. Now the last thing I wanted to show you is how you can import and export samples and patterns to your computer, because I find it not very well explained in the manual and the Texture Lab doesn't have many slots for samples, so that can be handy to know. So to connect it to your computer, the Liven uses its MIDI output and input, so you will need a MIDI to USB cable such as this one. In addition, you will need to get a software to transmit data through MIDI with your computer. If you are on PC, you can get MIDI OX, and if you are on Mac, you can get SysX Librarian. I am on PC, so I will use MIDI OX for the demonstration. So say you want to export a pattern to your computer. First, plug the Texture Lab to your computer with the MIDI to USB cable, and then open MIDI OX. MIDI OX should detect your MIDI interface automatically. You can check it by going to Options and then MIDI Devices. Then it should show up here. Just in case, you can check the settings by going to Options, then MIDI Filters. There, only check the system real-time and click the 3 dots next to it to see more options. Here, keep only the timing clock and the active sensing. I don't know if that's important, but it works for me in this way. So to communicate with the Texture Lab, go to View and then SysX. That will open a new window. Then on the Texture Lab, you do Function and Data Pattern until you see PEXP. And on MIDI OX, you go to SysX and Receive Manual Dump. and then press OK to transfer. Once it's done, the code will show up in the bottom part of the window. So now you can save it by going to Display Window and then Save As. And if you want to import a pattern back into the Texture Lab, you just put it into a regular mode. Then on the same sysx window, go to File and then Send sysx file. Choose one of your preset files and it should transfer right away. And once the pattern is imported, you still need to save it to keep it in the Texture Lab. And if you want to export all the patterns all at once from the Texture Lab, that's also something you can do. To do that, you need to turn off the Texture Lab and then turn it on again while holding the play button. You can turn the value knob until you see exp for export, prepare MIDI aux to receive data, and then press OK. If the transfer fails, you can turn the value knob while holding the shift button to transfer the data more slowly. And to import everything back, turn the value knob until you see import instead, then press OK and send the file from your computer. And if you want to export a sample, you need the Texture Lab to be turned on just as normal, and then do function and data sample until you see sample export. Or select sample import if you want to import from your computer. Though know that transferring those files take quite some time. To save a 6-second sample on my computer, it took about 2.5 minutes. So now that you know everything you can do with this, let's talk a bit about some pros and cons. On the pro side, this is a pretty affordable hardware granular synth. The size makes it pretty easy to transport, it's very lightweight, and it also works with batteries, so it's very transportable. It is pretty versatile as it is good to make lush textures as well as glitchy sequences, and it doubles as a granular effect as well as a sequencer. So that could fit in a lot of setups that can find its place pretty easily, especially with its powerful sequencer that can make very long sequences with a lot of automations, even with probability. So that's pretty cool. Though on the con side, I would have loved to be able to not have the sample play in loop when you hold the key down. That would have made it easier to make some melodic instruments, as I thought this loop features kind of got in the way sometime. And the obvious con for me is the number of slots you have available to record new samples. I think 32 is not really a lot, and sure you can save some samples and presets to your computer, but to me this is more on the con side as well, due to the software that is used for that. The software that is recommended for that in the manual, MIDI aux, hasn't been updated since 2010, and the last version was for Windows 2000, so you never know when this kind of software will stop working or if it will be updated, and that will not be Sonicware's responsibility in the end. Well, I'm sure there will be some software to be ready to handle this kind of things, but I thought that was worth mentioning. So I hope this video has been enough to make your own opinion on the Liven Texture Lab, and if you own one, I hope that helped you to get the hang of it. I want to thank all my Patreon supporters that are displaying on the screen right now. I really appreciate your support, so thank you very much. And thank you to you who are still watching this video. I hope you had a nice time. So take care of yourself, take care of each other, and I'll see you next time.